Hi, welcome to my channel. As you can see before, I've had a couple of videos. I've had this YouTube for about 8 years now, but I haven't really done much with it. I've recently decided that I'm going to start a booktube channel. I'll also be talking about some other things that I really get into. So like, I'm in the supernatural fandom, as you can probably tell by the little Castiel there. And the little thing my friend sent me as well. This is really cute. Yes, it's going to be a mix of things. So yeah, a little bit about me before we start. I haven't even introduced myself, have I? My name is Siobhan. I'm really into young adult. So I'll be talking a lot about young adult stuff. Mainly contemporary. I don't know if you can see the bookshelves behind me. Sarah Desson is one of my favourite authors, so I'm sure she'll feature at some point. But I read a lot of different things, like I've read Moby Dick this year, sorry. So yeah, be prepared for a big range of things that I'm going to be ended up talking about. I'd also like to point out I live by a main road, so you might hear a lot of traffic, and one of my neighbours is having work done on their house, so I'm really sorry for any background noise you might pick up. I have shut my windows and it is like really hot in England. It's not as hot as it has been. Last night we had like thunder and lightning, no rain, but it has cooled down a little bit. But yeah, I still had to do that just to try and not get the noise out a little bit. So I'm really sorry if you can pick up on the noise. I can't really do much about it. So yeah, I think I'm going to start with a book I read recently. It's a book that a lot of people probably know about. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. By Suzanne Collins. So this is the prequel book to the Hunger Games trilogy, also appearing on my bookshelves. And it looks at President Snow's time as a teenager within Panem. And it's really interesting. It's told in 3 parts. So the first part is kind of the establishing part. It's talking about, you know, Snow's childhood, when the war was going on, and what life was like then. So he mentions a few times one of his classmates. They've all got really weird names. So I know I'm one to talk, but bear with me while I forget all of their names. So yeah, he talks about one of his classmates and how her dad had cut a leg off of the woman who died in the street, and you know, there's cannibalism and things going on. It's like, this is a young adult book and they've got things like cannibalism. But he also talks about things like being hungry and how the war that went on in Panem affected everyone in the capital as much as it did everyone in the districts. And I think that's a really good thing to think about, like how much war can affect absolutely everyone. We're not that far away from World War II really, when, you know, the Great Depression and everything had happened just before it, and then so many countries in Europe got bombed. There are still trenches in Belgium. I remember going to that when I was like 13. Yeah, so the scars of war really do last, and I think this book really covers that well. In the first third, President Snow already? Snow talks about what his life is like now as a teenager, growing up in a capital that's trying to pretend that it's got all the stuff that we know about in the Hunger Games, but they're still dealing with the after effects of war. So there's a lot of pretense, and, you know, your honour is worth more than what you have in your stomach and stuff like that. So he will talk about things like trying to be discreet at the lunches that the college provides that he goes to, just so he can eat for the first time all day, but he doesn't want anyone to know how much he's struggling. So there's a lot of pride running throughout the story. It's big on how much pride he has, and I think that's a building block for the person he becomes. You know, it also sets a scene for things like why the Hunger Games even came into an existence, and what sort of expectations there were back in the 10th Hunger Games, which is when this is set. So you see things like how they treat the people who are raped, including, there's a guy called Reaper in this book as well who gets raped, which is it's really ironic to me. And they do address that. You know, they're saying, oh, he was named before the Hunger Games even started, so, you know, he's not called Reaper because of the reaping. And I remember having a conversation with my niece actually, and she was saying something about human zoo. So I was like, you need to read this book. And she did borrow it and she hasn't read it. Because that's what they do with the contestants in the first third. They put them in a human zoo, and Snow accidentally ends up in it as well. And it's only because of his quick thinking that he manages to turn it around as something that's, you know, a great idea he had to try and promote his victor, blah, 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 blah. Rather than, you know, he made a mistake and no one really questioned it until they realised that there was a guy in the human zoo who shouldn't have been there. We also are introduced to his victor in that first third, Lucy Gray, I want to say. I'm going to have to double check that. Oh, yeah, it is Lucy Gray. I'm such an idiot. So Lucy Gray is a singer, the songbird in the story, and she knows how to put on a performance, and I think she's the one who goes into the Hunger Games realising that it's a performance that she needs to put on. And she kind of schools Snow as much as he thinks he's schooling her. She needs to see him as an ally, and I think she's a lot more detached than he is, but he believes that there's a bit of a connection going on. So yeah, it's really interesting seeing how he's trying to deal with his feelings about where he's from and his position in life, and, you know, the expectations that his school has of him, and then how he feels about Lucy Gray, and will he give up what he actually wants for love or not, which is like a major running theme throughout the story as well. In the second part, it's the Hunger Games itself, which is very different from the Hunger Games that Katniss experiences. It's all done in one broken down arena. Like, there's rubble everywhere. There's lots of dark places to hide, but you wouldn't want to hide there. People aren't really in the Hunger Games wanting to kill each other yet, because what do they have to gain from it? And all these things are building up into Snow's repertoire of what he thinks the Hunger Games should be, and it's kind of almost a formative years of the Hunger Games itself, and how Snow has influenced everything that we see. He talks about how the contestants aren't fed beforehand, they're not treated well, and maybe that's why they don't fight as well. So you see like the blueprints of what Katniss knows in this story, but this story also stands alone on its own. Snow actually goes into the arena himself at one point because his friend has snuck in, his friend Sejanus, who is a completely different story altogether, but also something that it runs through the theme of the books. Sejanus came from District 12 and now lives in the capital, and he's told constantly by his parents, by Snow, by his teachers, that he should think like he's capital still, and he doesn't. He's still very much, that could have been me, but it's not because of luck. So Snow goes on a rescue mission for Sejanus, and you know, so we see Snow has actually experienced the games himself. We also see the relationship he has developed between him and his professor, and him and a researcher in the Capital Labs, who actually is the inventor of mutts. So things like the Mockingjays and the gator people that come up in the third book, and Jabberjays and stuff like that. So she is the actual mastermind behind all that, and she kind of takes on this mentor role with Snow herself, but she's very standoffish and kind of bloodthirsty as well. So I think that's a big influence on Snow. And we kind of see how he doesn't quite know what to think of her at first, and as the story goes on, he kind of realizes what she's doing for him and what he can learn from her. And at first he's very reserved about what her intentions are, but as the story goes on, you see him kind of come round to her way of thinking more. And then the teacher as well is very onto who Snow actually is and what his situation is and why he's trying to act the way he is. And Snow gets caught cheating to make sure he wins the games. I don't think that's a big spoiler, by the way. and he gets punished for it. So the third part of the book is where Snow actually spends time in District 12 trying to make up for being caught cheating. I don't think he actually tried to make up for cheating, because I don't think he's got that kind of remorse in him. His remorse is more for being caught, for not being recognised as the genius he is. So Snow is now a peacekeeper in District 12, and Sejanus appears. He's being forced there by his dad and by the powers that be as well, because they want to scare him into acting like he's capital. So it's not as much of a punishment for Snow as it is for Sejanus, really, but also Sejanus kind of fits in better at first. And while they're Snow and Lucy Gray kind of develop a sort of relationship, you know, Snow seems to think of Lucy Gray more as a possession, something he's earned because he gave her the thing he thought she wanted. I guess, you know, she wanted her life, so there's that. And you kind of see it fall apart slowly in front of him. He feels jealous of the boy she had left behind in the first place to go to the Hunger Games. But he's not jealous because of the relationship they had and the connection. He's jealous because Lucy Gray is his, not anyone else's. So yeah, he's very possessive. He also catches Sejanus kind of making friends with the locals, and when he does that, Sejanus kind of goes down a bad path. And even I was like, no, that's not a good thing to do. You have to pretend until you're in a position where you can make a change, Sejanus. But he doesn't. He wants to quit being capital and just run away, become, I don't know, like a wanderer, I guess, or he wants to try and find District 13, which has already been destroyed at this point. So Snow manages to capture Sejanus's plans on a Jabberjay and send that back to the capital, where it reaches his mentor. And Snow kind of gets everything he wants. I mean, you could tell it was coming, because obviously this is a prequel and we know what becomes of Snow in the later books. But yeah, it's the way it happened, I think, that is kind of the formative thing, rather than that it happened in the first place. Of course it's going to have happened in the first place. But I think the most interesting thing is a scene in a meadow just north of District 12, where Snow kind of goes a little bit psycho and tries to kill Lucy Gray, but she's kind of one step ahead of him and she kind of disappears. So we never actually find out if she survived, if she died. Snow tried to make sure that she had died. He kind of shoots a machine gun in a circle, trying to make sure that he has definitely got her, but there is no guarantee that he has. We don't hear any falling, there's no searching for the body, it's just him escaping, and then he gets to go and live in the capital again. So yeah, there's a lot of backstabbing, there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of development for the person that we get to know and how he came to be that way from an innocent 17-year-old. So there's a lot of really heavy themes in this book, but I think Suzanne Collins is just an amazing author. She manages to get you engaged with the characters. She describes her setting so well. You can feel their emotions, which is like the hardest thing, I think, to write. That and comedy are just two really difficult things to write. And she nails it, and she nails it so well. You know, you picture all of the mutts that are in here. There's snakes. I forgot to mention those, but they are the snakes in the title. Lucy Gray thinks she's got an affinity with snakes, and then one of the mutts that the doctor, who is Snow's mentor, develops these snakes that are very poisonous and very aggressive, but if they've smelt your scent before, they won't attack you. And Snow only realizes this after he hands in a paper that he said he wrote in a group. We've all been there, where one person in a group has done all the work, and his friend who said that she wrote it with him gets attacked by these snakes. So that's just a little hint of how graphic this story gets as well. yeah, I thought it was so fascinating, and I kind of wish I got another slice of how Snow took all of the ideas he has in this book about how to treat they're not participants, are they? Like the kids who get picked, who get reaped. But I don't know what you'd call them. The victors, isn't it? But that's only a new concept. But yeah, I'd love to see how he manages to develop these things into what we know now as the Hunger Games. And like, there's not much on Avoxes or how the districts came to be themselves, because this is obviously set in a place that was America and became Panem. But we don't see how the districts got divided, or why the capital became the capital, and is that Washington DC or is that New York City? Like, it's really not clear on some of these things. So yeah, I'd love to read more about this world, and yeah, I totally recommend it. So happy reading. And I will see you guys soon. Please like and comment and subscribe if you enjoyed my content. I know it's really rusty. This is my first video in about 6 years, not counting all the stuff I've done for Gish in the past, which is all unlocked. I'm sorry, I haven't unlocked any of those videos. I probably won't. So yeah, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys later.